is, Grover?
I think so.
What letter is this?
Q.
Q. This is indeed a Q.
Front it.
From this day forward, a new vision will govern our land. From this day forward, it's going to be only America first. America first. The forgotten men and women of our country will be forgotten no longer. Every decision on trade, on taxes, on immigration, on foreign affairs will be made to benefit American workers and American families. I will fight for you with every breath in my body, and I will never, ever let you down. We will bring back our jobs. We will bring back our borders. We will bring back our wealth. And we will bring back our dreams. Do not allow anyone to tell you that it cannot be done. No challenge can match the heart and fight and spirit of America. We will not fail. January 20th, 2017 will be remembered as the day the people became the rulers of this nation again.
All right. We got Scott in studio here.
Good afternoon on this Sunday, snowy, cold northern Indiana day.
Yes, it is a cold blast in the Midwest. Folks, we're going to go for about 15 minutes, take a small pause, maybe play a video, just keep the room open, and then we'll be back. I think maybe we'll have Ben join for a little bit via Beam-In. We got Scott in studio here for the next couple hours, hopefully. Lots to go over, lots to get into, but I'll let Scott kind of kick this opening off. What do you think about that speech, by the way?
Love that speech. I was just telling Mike before we got on here that lately he's had some good speeches even when he was during the campaign, but lately I'm hearing better keywords, not better, emotional keywords. Like I was saying, I get some goosebumps. I feel, I hate to say it, I don't want to attach the names too much because some of the radicals think we're crazy for comparison, but JFKS a little bit. He doesn't, he's coming off to me exactly the way I need him to come off to me, and that is patriotism. He's done everything except ask or say what JFK said as far as don't ask what your country can do for you. But in a sense, that's what he's trying to get the country back to us. And he's doing it in such a methodical way, too. I mean, most of us are picking up on some of the words he's using in his speeches. Then he also repeats constantly, if you pick up on it or catch it, about how he used to be in the dark, when he was his old self. Now he's his new self, coming into the light and whatnot. So, completely stoked. He's motivating. The Hispanic approval rating is going up. He made some tweet comments about that. I know the left is going to probably try to say that's untrue. And all these polls are bogus anyway. I mean, I'd like to believe most of them, or at least the ones that I find credible. But like we all know, during the campaign, y'all remember when he was supposed to get smashed, Clinton was just going to walk away with it. And, we've had those conversations about why they do negative polls and why they, lie about the polls, because if they say he's winning, then some people are going to vote for him anyway, just because he's the winner. So I don't know how much weight I put in the polls, but anyway, speeches, good. I'm enjoying them. The emphasis on patriotism and Americana, let's get back to what made us great. I think, he's repeating it over and over in different ways. He keeps throwing in different phrases and different verbiages, so he's not stale by any means. I think he's evolving, and hopefully drawing some that are leaning towards the right or a little unsure, towards his side. So not his side, our side.
Well, it's kind of like, yeah, I think the more you're paying attention to everything and then you listen to something like that today, you hear today We will move forward in a different manner. The government will be, he's talking. He's definitely talking to the people that are paying attention. If you're not in tune and you kind of hate them, then you're not going to hear any of those words. So again, yesterday, some of the people were upset in the live stream or just around the different social medias. Like, I thought I'd hear more out of them during that, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
But it's like he says these other things. Like he released that today.
Yeah.
He'll go to the media and say, well, if we have no choice, we'll use a national emergency down the border.
Just like a year ago, it was the nuclear option. I mean, he
says it here and there, and you can hear it there, but he knows at a time like that, lots of people are tuned in, and he doesn't have to be. He's giving them every chance.
He's not being a dictator.
Yeah,
what
they
I
don't
love
want to give
about
them
him,
that.
He's giving them options. He's making it very clear. Listen, I do have the authority to do these things.
Yes.
I can do whatever it is. Not whatever, but the previous administration implemented a lot of their own presidential. What's the word I'm looking for? Sorry, I'm just getting the creative juices going. But he's come out and basically told American people and the politicians, listen, there's two ways to do this. Come to the middle, come to the middle, come to the middle, or I can use nuclear nuclear football, I always call it. I can use emergency funds. I can use defense monies. There's lots of different options, but I would rather you guys come together. He's being a good leader right now. He's letting the American people see him say, I can do this if I want to on my own, but that'll
Give
come
them
off
every
negative.
option.
Right.
It's like, oh, look, he was quick to go to a national emergency.
Right.
No, he didn't. He took 2 weeks and gave them like 15 times.
Yep.
So if you've already declared back in December 21st of 17, you declared the human rights abuse, human trafficking, blocking the property and monies of these people involved in that, and you do declare a national emergency on human trafficking, if you're able to relate that to the wall somehow, because we know that that's happening down there, whether it's human rights of how the people from Honduras or Mexico will travel for weeks, the girls are getting raped, the moms know it when they send their daughters off in these coyote runs.
They're giving them
birth control.
Birth control.
Yes. And
why are they giving them birth control?
They're that desperate or whatever. You could say, I'm just saying that's still human rights abuse on that side leading up here. If we have kids getting siphoned out of here, that's human. So how do you combat human rights and declare it a national emergency 2 years ago, but then not do something within the scope of that? Like, if you know you're bleeding right here and you created something here, how can you not easily declare and implement and
make the connection? Yeah.
How do you have a war on drugs like we've had
without having a war on drugs?
Yeah.
Without implementing
If
variables
you're actually
that are
bringing them in.
Right. Well, that's called hypocrisy. But I hate that's tough. The whole war on drugs thing. Reagan tried it, and other presidents just kind of gave up.
But what should Trump came on TV like Reagan when he was demanding the hostages release? Like, blah, blah, we don't want that.
Well, he can't do that right now. No. See, if Reagan could do it because he was. I don't know that his approval ratings, but for a couple of reasons why Trump can't act like Reagan. Number one, everybody, including us, have microphones now. When we have Facebook and the media, they'll tear Trump apart if he comes down with an iron fist. Reagan was able to do it because what was going to be the backlash?
Yeah. Well, this is a foreign group too. You're wanting to act tough, and I get that. He didn't so much want to act tough to Nancy and Chuck. It's just clear they're looking bad anyway. You don't need to do much more. You're
no.
Every opportunity.
My dad always told me that you want instead of arguing, if you want somebody to look like them, like a moron, like they are, if they are a moron, then just give them a microphone. And maybe that's what people say about us, but give them a platform. If they talk long enough, we're going to identify what they are. I couldn't tell you what a lot of politicians' agendas are without getting on the old interwebs and doing some research, but I have a pretty good idea who a Schumer and a Pelosi and now this new socialist Cortez. I got a good idea what kind of people they are, so you want to make them look dumb? Let her be the Speaker of the House, I guess. I still don't understand how the hell she got it. Apparently, there's still some brain dead people, but speeches, I'm loving them. I on the way over to the studio, I wrote down a couple of things while you're typing and doing what you're doing. I kind of wanted to get the consensus of our followers and whatnot. So this Gillette thing, and I've just spoke with my mom, sat down and had a couple of drinks with her the other night. My mom's old school. She's 63, 64, raised 5 kids, stayed married for years until we lost my dad a few years ago. Hardest working person, one of the hardest working people I ever know. Some people would argue that because she had some jobs, but her biggest job was raising 5 kids, and that's hard to do. One went to hospital from birth to whatever, but so we had this conversation on Gillette, right? What Gillette is saying, what's the left is saying, what liberals are saying, what socialists. What is a man? Define a man, and she, like my wife and other women that I socialize with people like me, like-minded people. I haven't had a debate yet with those that think opposite on this topic.
The enemy. Not sure.
Yeah, but I want to raise my sons to be men, and I don't need
Best they can
Gillette. To be the best, and unfortunately, Garage Talk prior to this guy kind of stole some of my stuff, but I still have a good little rant here, but I don't need Gillette to tell me that without using their product, I can't be the best I can be. And I don't need them telling my sons how to be men, because 35 years ago or whatever it was, their logo or slogan was the best a man could be or the best man can get, whatnot. And it was,
1988 during the Super Bowl is when that aired to
Sure.
kick it off. That's something. Yep.
So we're masculine men. That's why we need razors. We got hair and we need to shave. And there's nothing wrong with being a man. And I can tell you personally that the women in my life don't want to be involved with or date or marry or whatnot. I don't want to stereotype, but I'm almost positive men are supposed to be manly. And women are supposed to be womanly, I guess, ladylike. And again, this goes back to some of our morals and our beliefs of the further we get away from our morals and our beliefs and our faith and God and whatnot, the more problems we seem to have. So now we're in this era, and it's not ironic because we were just worried about what bathrooms to use. Now we're trying to define what a man is.
Yeah.
Why haven't any of these people or these advertisers tried to tell me or the rest of the world what a woman is? Because I would find that to be very entertaining, because they're going to catch a lot of slack. What they're doing is prejudiced. They're prejudiced. They're prejudging me because I might be a middle-aged white man, right? So the whole definition of prejudice is you're prejudging. They're calling me toxic. They wouldn't dare have one of these campaigns against women, because most of these extreme left women expect men to know their place and be, just sit over there in the corner and just take this shellac. And well, I tell you what, I'm going to switch brands. I really like that brand. But just like the shoe company, I won't spend money with them now. So Gillette, if you're listening, I don't need you to tell me how to be a man or my son how to be men. Nike, I've got through life just fine doing it my way. I don't need you to tell me just do it this way. And McDonald's, I'm still loving it. My life. I don't need you telling me what I need to eat in order to love. And of course, Burger King, I can have it my way. I have it my way because I'm doing it. So, if I don't know how to sum it up in a 15-second commercial, but I don't need big money telling me how to raise my children.
Yeah, they haven't dictated anything for me. I'm loving it your way. Just do it. Be the best a man can be. I didn't need to know from you all those things.
Did you wake up when your first son was born? And since then, have you called 1-800-GILLETTE and asked them on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, hey, I'm having trouble with my son. What do you recommend?
Am I being the best I can be,
Right.
Gillette? Have you bought razors lately? No. No, you haven't.
Right.
I don't know why they even think like if you go to their website, which I don't recommend, but if you do, look at their whole little piece there, folks. It's just unbelievable. They've shaped the forms of society right around us and pushed for the men to be. Yeah. So
if any of you want to chime in, like something real quick, don't make it a paragraph, so maybe I can catch them and I'll read them. But what's your thought? Do you need Gillette? Do you need Nike? Do you need these big companies to tell you how to raise your boys? And are you upset or find it hypocritical that they're not telling you how to raise their daughters? My understanding and the way I look at it, and this might come off a little cruel or tough. Maybe it's because I'm a man.
Yeah.
But they're not telling me. Gillette's not telling. It sounds like Gillette and all these companies are telling my boys how to be girls.
Yeah.
I mean, the Boy
It's called
Scouts did a real good job of telling my son how to be a girl.
Somebody put in there, it's the trans agenda. That's
See,
what
I'm
it is.
not gonna have conversations about it. It's like racism. I mean, this is a lot like racism, right? And they flip it around on us. There's no room for racism if we all call each other Americans.
Mm-hmm.
I am not going to have a conversation with anybody anymore about what a boy is and what a girl is. God makes man, in my opinion. And even if you're not a godly person, a child comes out one way or the other, and I know scientifically that sometimes they're called hermaphrodites because they do have both parts. Well, then you have a special problem right there.
Yeah.
And it is a special problem. It's got to be confusing for the parent, and then when that child gets old enough. But your boy and your girl.
Now, sometimes they'll take the steps that they can know, like, well, even the doctors, they can do tests. The kid doesn't even know, like, this is inactive.
Right.
If it's the male part that's there, it's sometimes inactive,
Sure.
and it's more based off the other one. So they'll get rid of the one.
Yeah.
And that child will never know, but now, is there mistakes happening? Or, this is, again, I don't
On the
really know,
outside,
but this has got to be such a small fraction of what the issue is. But
0.01%.
yeah, if they take away, the male parts, and then down the road that child seems to be more chemically or something, and they might have made a mistake, like, oh, we kind of as parents made the wrong. I always wanted a son. I shouldn't have had let that judge me into cutting off parts.
Right.
I don't know, folks. That's while we're waiting on some comments to stroll in, I did want to ask you this, Scott, just something to think about. We could probably get into it more in the next little segment. Looking into the original, JFK, the president that we had that got assassinated. If you look at the cabinet members or people that, some of the, I don't know, a lot of people were out of the country. A lot of people had left. He was in Dallas
When he got assassinated?
Yes.
That's true. That's true. I think it was like 38% of the cabinet.
Same thing was going on when they were all trying to leave Friday. Pelosi. Now, she was taking 98 people out of her family, by the way, to Afghanistan, to Pakistan,
Greece,
Brussels.
Egypt, Brussels, and Afghanistan. Yeah. Afghanistan was supposed to be an 8-hour stop because they weren't going to. They had to tie Afghanistan in 8 hours so they could have their lavish vacations, and that's what the hell it was.
I've been listening to somebody else, and I got to dig into it, but he's talking about Nancy Pelosi's drinking fest up in the sky. $25,000 the last time when they fly. That's how much they drink, eat, and it costs taxpayers. That comes out of they said upwards of $100,000 on ones in the past, like just extravagant food, drinking a lot. $100,000 to us. 98 people in her own personal family, grandkids, kids, were going. 98, all by taxpayer dollar.
If that's true, and
that's what I'm saying.
If it's, we're gonna look into that. We basically got on here real quick to get your juices going, get your thoughts and questions going. Wow, let's look into that real quick.
Now,
because if that's
with
true,
that in
I'm
mind,
even more
with in mind of JFK, the way it happened, people being out of the country, and then we had this happen. So now, here, look at this. You could read a little bit of it. Read that right here.
Georgia man arrested for plotting rocket attack against Trump White House. I'm going to read on that when we get to Garage Talk. But yes, the president of the United States gets death threats. It's just the nature of the job. Someone out there didn't vote for you, hates you, wants you to die. We're a nation of 300+ million people. There are more than a few folks out there that have a screw loose or with screw loose. For one Georgia resident, reality hit fast when federal agents broke up his alleged plot to attack the Trump White House with a variety of explosives, one of which was an anti-tank rocket. I'm going to dig into that here in a minute. I know I have a phone call to make. Sorry, I'm in the HVAC world, and we're cold around here. Again, Mike and I were only planning on jumping this in and getting your juices going, but we are definitely coming right back after a quick Garage Talk, and we'll be on for a while. So, don't mean to end it like that, but we're going to be right back.
Is this have anything to do with something? Were they trying to leave? This guy was to do this, and
I can see where we're
how would
trying
they know?
Yeah. All right.
All right. So I'll put a video on, folks. We'll just keep it going. I apologize again. We want to jump in and get juices flowing. We decided I'm going to keep it going instead of shutting it down. So
yeah, there you go. Just put a video on. We'll be back. I ain't going anywhere for a while.
Ah, the old Navy days. Yeah, there I am. My name is Michael, and yes, I was in the United States Navy. Some of the best times of my life. And this will, without a doubt, go down as one of the greatest pleasures of my life. Serving with some of the finest men and women in the world. Some of these people are some of my nearest and dearest, best friends I've ever made to this day. God bless and Godspeed to each and every one of you. I can talk about this forever. Swimming and jet skiing in the Persian Gulf, some of the most saltiest body of water on the planet, most shark infested, with an average temperature of like 75 or 78 degrees year round.
Can't see you, dude. Everett.
During my time aboard the USS George Washington, we took part in many different events. Notably, the day after September 11th, on September 12th, we pulled in just off of Coney Island and provided air support for the city. This would become to be known as Operation Noble Eagle. Now, notably, 11 months before this event, we had the USS Cole get bombed. That was part of our battle group. So I guess it should be noted here that the Cole got bombed first. 11 months later, we were involved with the September 11th. But before both of those, in 99, July 16th, 1999 to be exact, approximately 7.5 miles west of Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts, a Piper Saratoga piloted by John F. Kennedy Jr. with passengers Carolyn Bessette and her sister Lauren plunged into the Atlantic Ocean, supposedly, off Martha's Vineyard on what was a short flight from Fairfield, New Jersey, in order to make a family wedding the following day. Now again, this is the official narrative. Now before we get started here, I had mentioned earlier I was in the Navy, and by no doubt that would go down as one of the greatest pleasures of my life. And another one, without any doubt, will be the Patriot Hour. Now, I get thousands of emails a week, thousands of comments underneath the videos from some of the greatest patriots around this planet. Now, it's very clear that these people are genuine, they care, and they just want to see a better world. Which brings me to where we're at. Now, to understand this story, we need to go back a little bit. We need to just do a quick refresh of everything to bring us up to par. That way we're all on the same playing field and understand things the way that possibly they are even meant to be understood. Now, to get in the mindset of this, you would have to put yourself as a small child and your father gets assassinated while he's president. And then a few years after that, you have your uncle get assassinated, another political figure. Now, I suppose most people think that JFK Jr., from the day that he saluted his father's casket at just the age of 3 years old, till the evening his plane went down, he just went on about his business, playing the game of life like we all do so well. After all, he did live, in the most part, a relatively ordinary life, in spite of being called the Prince of America's Camelot. So what do you suppose was going on in the mind of JFK Jr.? He could have written his own political ticket, yet he went into publishing. Now, many expected him to land in politics, and most likely were a bit perplexed when he decided to publish a magazine instead. Now, some might have thought he was afraid to go into politics because of the Kennedy curse. However, nothing could be further from the truth. What he ended up doing proved to be more dangerous than any political arena. He knew that from the start, but John had a mission, and that mission was to expose those who orchestrated that dastardly act upon his father. Unbeknownst to the public, John was digging really deep for the proof. And how else could he expose the truth when all the media outlets were controlled by the very cabal he planned to expose? Enter George. When he presented his magazine George to the world, he was, for all practical purposes, some claim, signing his own death warrant. Now, the magazine George was a valid threat in a symbolic sort of way at first. Do you see? How many men named George come to your mind as just the thought of a President John F. Kennedy's assassination? Now, the cabal wanted his father dead. This is pretty much a fact. But the namesake of John F. Kennedy Jr.'s magazine, their minion, arranged it. And John, once he had all the proof that he needed, the truth would come out in his very own magazine. Do you understand this picture now? We all know President John F. Kennedy understood the predatory nature of the private central banking system. He understood why Andrew Jackson fought so hard to end the second bank of the United States. So Kennedy wrote and signed Executive Order 11110, which ordered the U.S. Treasury to issue a new public currency, the United States note. Now, this is an unfortunate story. You have a young man who knows his dad was assassinated, and then an uncle. And every year around a certain time on the anniversary date of his father, the shows would air. You have people that have given up their life to investigate John F. Kennedy. Why wouldn't your own son? He was probably curious, wanted to get to the bottom of it, and his determination, getting into the journalistic aspects, getting a magazine, and then finally getting into the political realm. There was rumor that John had obtained the proof he needed for an expose, and it was in the works until his untimely and most suspicious death. Now, of course, the media campaigned that he was an irresponsible thrill seeker. But then they would, now wouldn't they? Now, although many people knew JFK Jr., that he was murdered, and they were right about who was responsible, they were just wrong about the reason. Now, John Jr. was warned by his family members about the risk involved in this pursuit, his pursuit of truth. But he was determined to get justice for his father and bring truth to the light, exposing the darkness that shrouds our planet. So I beg you to ask yourself, what would you do if you were a mere baby when your father, who just happened to be the most important man in the country at the time, was murdered in such a gruesome manner, and you never had the opportunity to know him? would you just let it go? Now this is very important to mention. Q Post 1082. POTUS and JFK Jr. Relationship. Plane crash 1999. HRC Senate 2000. The start. Enjoy the show. Q. Now this is where the story splits. Some believe that John F. Kennedy Jr., John, faked his own death and went into hiding to expose. Others believe he did die. This is where the other part of the story comes in. Now we know JFK Jr. and Donald Trump were friends. Now to the level of their friendship, that remains to be uncovered. Some say surfaceable, some say very deep. And if they were friends, like we are led to believe, and they had conversations, it's probably safe to assume they had conversations about John F. Kennedy's murder, Robert F. Kennedy's murder. I mean, Trump is no skeptic to some of the conspiracies. He's actually on the record in many different ways disputing them or questioning them. Some might even say predicting them. Let's take a look.
Donald Trump is on the line. I mean, we know him as the man behind lots of real estate in Manhattan, and of course, Donald, I understand you were actually a witness to what happened this morning.
Well, I have a window that looks directly at the World Trade Center, and I saw this huge explosion. I was with a group of people, and I really couldn't even believe it. And even, I think worse than that, for years I've looked right directly at the building. I'd see the Empire State Building in the foreground and the World Trade Center in the background, and now I'm looking at absolutely nothing. It's just gone, and it's just hard to believe. Well, it was an architectural defect. You know, the World Trade Center was always known as a very, very strong building. Don't forget, that took a big bomb in the basement. Now, the basement is the most vulnerable place because that's your foundation, and it withstood that. And I got to see that area about 3 or 4 days after it took place because one of my structural engineers actually took me for a tour because he did the building. And I said, I can't believe it. The building was standing solid, and half of the columns were blown out. I mean, so this was an unbelievably powerful building. If you know anything about structure, it was one of the first buildings that was built from the outside. The steel, the reason the World Trade Center had such narrow windows is that in between all the windows, you had the steel on the outside. So you had the steel on the outside of the building. That's why when I first looked, and you had big, heavy I-beams, when I first looked at it, I couldn't believe it because there was a hole in the steel. And this is steel that was, you remember the width of the windows in the World Trade Center, folks. I think you know, if you were ever up there, they were quite narrow. And in between was this heavy steel. I said, how could a plane, even a 767 or 747 or whatever it might have been, how could it possibly go through the steel? I happen to think that they had not only a plane, but they had bombs that exploded almost simultaneously, because I just can't imagine anything being able to go through that wall. Most buildings are built with the steel is on the inside around the elevator shaft. This one was built from the outside, which is the strongest structure you can have. And it was almost just like a can of soup. You
know, Donald, we were looking at pictures all morning long of that plane coming into building number 2. And when you see that approach the far side, and then all of a sudden, within a matter of a millisecond, the explosion pops out the other side.
Right. I just think that it was a plane with more than just fuel. I think, obviously, they were very big planes. They were going very rapidly because I was also watching where the plane seemed to be not only going fast, it seemed to be coming down into the building. So it was getting the speed from going downhill, so to speak. It just seemed to me that to do that kind of destruction is even more than a big plane, because you're talking about taking out steel, the heaviest caliber steel that was used on a building. I mean, these buildings were rock solid. And, you know, it's just an amazing thing. This country is different today, and it's going to be different than it ever was for many years to come.
Very profound statement and very true.
feed dug up an old quote from Donald Trump talking about a large-scale terror attack 19 months before 9/11. In his 2000 book, The America We Deserve, Trump wrote, "I really am convinced we're in danger of the sort of terrorist attacks that will make the bombing of the 1993 Trade Center look like little kids playing with firecrackers." Trump also mentioned the mastermind of the attack, writing, quote, "One day, we're told that a shadowy figure with no fixed address named Osama bin Laden is public enemy number one, and U.S. jet fighters lay waste to his camp in Afghanistan. He escapes back under some rock, and a few news cycles later, it's on to a new enemy and a new crisis." Trump.
Wait.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, hold on a second. Is this really Trump before 9/11? Have you read this?
It's 2000 in his book.
Are we making that? Did you make
Nick.
this up, Mika?
Nick.
I did.
Did you make this up?
Yeah,
Nick,
exactly.
tell us it's over, right? Because
Will
you're
you
wrong
stop?
about everything.
Mika, stop. God.
I don't think it's over.
What's
I
that?
think
What's the
Trump and Ben
rage here? Will you
Carson-
stop
No,
picking
it's
on
cute.
him?
I think it's cute.
Well,
go for it.
No, really quickly,
for it.
though. I mean, so Willie, that was
2000.
2000.
In a book he wrote in the year 2000. Yeah.
Well, it was published in 2000. He could have written it in 1999 for all we know.
Exactly. He might have
But
been
he-
a bit more prescient.
So he basically predicted the attacks from Osama bin Laden.
It's good enough for the state of Hawaii and the State Department.
Okay.
U.S. State Department recognizes these as legitimately.
It's not a birth certificate, Candy, and people are trying to figure out why isn't he giving his birth certificate. It's not a birth certificate. A certificate of live birth, and you can see that one that you have and the one that I brought you, because that's the one that's on the internet and all over the place. It doesn't even have a serial number. It doesn't have a signature. It doesn't have a signature. One that I saw on television has a stamp, but that's not a
Because
signature.
right, but that's how they
Excuse
do
me, but
these.
that's not the one that they were showing to everybody. And I just say very simply, why doesn't he show his birth certificate? Why has he spent over $2 million in legal fees to keep this quiet and to keep this silent? When I listened today to the tape of the grandmother, and she was saying he was born essentially in Kenya, and then all of a sudden, don't forget, this is when Barack Obama was hot as a pistol because it looked like he was going to get the nomination, and they had a lot of people, a lot of handlers in there, and all of a sudden you hear people all over the room, no, he was born in Hawaii, he was born in Hawaii. But she didn't
But they
say
said it was
that.
a misinterpretation.
Excuse me, they
of that.
drowned her out. She was like, there were a lot of people in that room, and she said, Kenya, he was born right here, and then they started saying, screaming, no, you mean Hawaii, you mean Hawaii. There's
And they
a
say
lot
it's
of
a
crazy things.
To his political advantage in this campaign. Claiming those billions mean he can't be bought by special interests, Wall Street, or corporate America's lobbyists. Not only that, once dismissed by the elites of both parties and leftist mainstream media, he is now a full-on threat to the American establishment, whether political, business, media, or academia. The orthodoxies, the status quo, they hate him.
In my former life, I was an insider as much as anybody else. And I knew what it's like, and I still know what it's like to be an insider. It's not bad. It's not bad. Now I'm being punished for leaving the special club and revealing to you the terrible things that are going on having to do with our country.
So you can see that Trump is experienced. He's a former insider. He has all the ties. He had all the money. And he had tons of power. With those kinds of resources, you can pretty much find out anything you want. Now this is where it gets a little murky and there's a lot of opinion. There are sources out on the internet for some of it, but again, nothing can really be verified. Now, did John F. Kennedy Jr. die that day, or did he fake his own death and go into hiding after discovering some kind of bomb-type device on his plane and knowing that if he came out in the news that he found a bomb, then they'd just be another attempt at another date in the future. They'd never go away. And was Trump working with him at the time, listening to John and all of his theories and really intrigued himself? Did Trump take over the helm if JFK Jr. did die? This is where it all gets murky and you really can't get any fact. You can only speculate. But one thing is true, that Trump is definitely up to something. Now, according to many different investigative reports, Trump was approached several years ago by a group of patriotic generals, and he was recruited by military intelligence to run in the 2016 presidential election. He was going to help remove the corrupt deep state officials from their positions of power and expose all the corruption of these officials involved in a history of treasonous actions against the U.S. Republic. So military intelligence got with Trump. Trump agreed he would run, and they agreed that if he would run, they would conduct their coup d'etat as a legitimate process, rooting out all the traitors within our U.S. government. And then in doing so, help fix a lot of the problems in the world today. Does Trump know things? Is Trump doing the right thing? I guess only time can tell. We're following along closely to the full picture. If you start listening to his speeches, even the ones in the past, you hear him use words like "we the people," take power away from DC and give it back to you, the people. Just look no further than to his tweets. He talks about the Fed Reserve, the power they have and they shouldn't, and we need to give it back to the people. These are dangerous words amongst the secret society members, those that have control, the Luciferian agenda. I guess I can say this much. For all of you out there, for everybody that studied the New World Order, the whole system that's entrenched in that, we think we figured it all out, we knew it all. And what we hoped for was an outsider to come in, somebody that wasn't part of the political realm, the system. And we might have that for the very first time in a really long time. A former insider, somebody that knew all the tricks because he used to pull them. Somebody that can be like a virus from the inside out. Because this, my friends, is what it would take. The story goes he was put down the QAnon path several years ago. Similar to what we're getting is like a 2.0 version. Trump learned it all, dialed it in, and they have all the safeguards in place. Now again, time will tell. We're going to keep following this story. I hope you will join us. Again, I'm Michael. This is a Patriot Hour. God bless, Godspeed to each and every one of you worldwide. Where we go one, we go all.
We are back. Sorry, doing.
What's up, y'all?
It's gonna be a little echo because we.
Oh, there's Ben. I forgot Ben was coming on.
What's
Sorry,
up,
Ben.
dude?
I was just doing some consulting and sales on a Sunday.
Brother, you're a hard-working man. I know that the HVAC always keeps you busy.
Yeah, we love this weather. It's kind of it's a double-edged sword. You know, I need yours to break, and then but.
And then come summertime when the AC is not kicking, I give you a call again, right?
There you go.
All right, we got people still in the room. Nobody left. Everyone stuck around. We got about 400 in here, so this is awesome. How's everybody doing? Watched the JFK video again, did you? All right. What were we going to get into? Oh, I wanted to finish up on this bomber, this Georgia man arrested for plotting a rocket attack against Trump in the White House. That is unbelievable.
I mean, you can't make that up. I mean, how can you make up a rocket launcher? I mean, that's so far out there, crazy. But we know. I mean, geez, it's another assassination attempt thwarted by the Secret Service by good patriots. I mean, I know we don't really know the facts or the figures, but I mean, how many attempts has this been so far that we can hypothetically? I mean, we don't know exactly how many attempts because it's all been behind the scenes. Obviously, none of them have been effective, but I mean, it's been a lot. I would hypothetically say.
Yeah. By the way, Scott's one of you great patriots sent. That's the second one we've gotten. That's going with Scott. He'll wear it proudly. Awesome, right? So
actually, it'll do a fine job when I'm crawling around crawl spaces and basements. Keep that nice hair clean.
Yes.
Oh, awesome,
everybody else is wearing a hat or a beanie, so I might as well, right?
So we got some comments up here too underneath you, Scott, on the main screen. If we want to ever jump in on some of those. But yeah, what do you guys think on that?
Let Ted drain the Michigan swamp. You know, I don't know where we're going with this segment, but stop me if I'm wrong. Ted Cruz is pushing and Trump is agreeing term limits.
Yes, we need that. That's part of the process.
On that note right there, when Trump is done, I know we're all for Pence, you know, in 2024, is it, or whatever. If it's Cruz, I'm voting for him. Term limits is huge. Anybody, and it could be somebody on the left side. If they do term limits, I'm probably going to pay attention.
Wow.
Yeah, I would say I think one term for everything. That's what I say. You get one term, that's it. And once you're in, that's out, that's it. You can't go back for 2 terms.
Yes.
The downfall to that is when you actually do get somebody that's getting something done, he's forced out. But we haven't seen that too often, so I don't think it's really going to be a problem.
I mean, I guess that swings around to the other idea of if everybody's aware of the constitutional rights and we're aware of how things should be acting, you only need one term to get things done.
Yeah.
And like if it was like a long-term project, i.e. like a security thing or whatever it is, obviously each term thereafter it would be a huge hot topic because it was like people are aware of it and they know they only have one term to go. And if you know you only have one term and you can't come back and run ever again, you wouldn't get the kind of person who's going to get in there and become wealthy off of sitting there for 40, 50 years. You're going to get that one guy who's going to come in there.
And it'd be a different idea. You go to do something and get back home to living. You're not going to live in the swamp or the D.C. area. You're supposed to go there, represent your state, and then get back home because your wife, your kids, your life, your livelihood are all back there. You don't make that in D.C. area. So
that's what our founding fathers talked about. You know, go serve your country. It's a duty that you should do, and then get back to your farm or get back to your profession. It's not a career. Yeah. And they talked about this in their memoirs and biographies and autobiographies. Thomas Jefferson was huge on this. It's not you're not camping out in D.C. for your life.
Yes.
Well, the difference too is when we talk about single terms, we also start talking about who is paying these individuals. Right now, a lot of the congressmen, senators are getting paid by the District of Columbia. They're not getting paid by the state they represent. So their interests don't rely on the state they represent.
Bill Cooper said it best.
There you go.
DC is a foreign.
So what you're saying is they can implement their own thoughts, own ideals, or just sit on their rear ends, and they really don't have to worry about what their constituents are paying them.
Exactly, because their interests don't lie with the state they are elected to. It lies with the seat they hold within the District of Columbia. That's why a lot of people, almost every single governor, congressman that comes in for the most part, always sits on 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 different subcommittees. These subcommittees would be the committee for national defense. It'd be the committee for the subcommittee for this, the subcommittee for financing. And they have chairmen of these subcommittees, and they have people. This is where deals and the backroom deals, handshake. You agree to my bill, I agree to your bill. See, the problem is because you have people like Pelosi and almost 100 people of her family taking vacations in the taxpayer dollar because their money comes from the District of Columbia slush fund, if you will. So when you start having term limits, what's happening is you'll get a guy, let's say we talked about Michigan. Let's say it won't be a representative of the state of Michigan. It'll be a representative representing Michigan State. And he will get paid by the Bank of Michigan State. And he will represent the people of Michigan State. He'll go to D.C. once to go in there, and it'll be a municipality. He'll get the yearly budget. He'll get because the states are supposed to work in concert.
Yeah.
That's what the original Penn Constitution, in concert. That means we're not ruled by one District of Columbia. That means we all in tandem with an equal voice. Illinois with Michigan and Indiana and Texas and Oklahoma and California. We all come together and we all make a consensus. Then we all turn around and we go back home.
So
and you don't have a house in D.C.
I almost
you don't live there. You don't stay there.
I almost asked Mike the other day, and maybe we can do one coming up in the next week or so. But the whole ideal of a republic, right? A federal government. The federal government in the beginning was a few things that the federal government was responsible for: protecting the nation or the nation of states, the group of states. Not somewhat infrastructure, It was supposed to be a governing body, but now we find ourselves where the federal government is. And you look at FICA. See, this is what I want to do a show on. FICA. It's the biggest deduction out of your paycheck, right? Mm-hmm. Because of all of they're getting themselves into the FHA loans. When the market collapsed, and this was kind of on my rant the other day. The federal government has involved themselves into being professional house sellers. They've put themselves in a situation to identify and tell us what banks and companies should be bailed out. This was on the rant about unemployed workers. Here we are hearing all this whining and crying about federal employees being laid off. And if you go back to your FICA paycheck and you look at the IRS, prior to the IRS being around, they were never, I think it was 40 something, 50. We just paid our taxes and that was good. But now we have this, the federal government is one of the largest employers on the planet. And it's not intended to be that way. And a lot of it is because we give enemies money. Billions and billions of dollars. We've allowed the federal government to back unsafe loans. And then it was Bush's fault, right? And then we had the federal government bailing out those banks that they were in bed with, like Ben just said, lobbyists down in Puerto Rico talking how they're going to scheme and scam. And then they bailed out GM and bailed out this. And they never bailed us out. They called unemployment, but they really didn't bail us out. But now they want us as taxpayers to worry about 800,000 people that are out of jobs. Well, welcome to the real world.
Yeah.
FICA is as bad as the Federal Reserve, in my opinion.
Well, you got Pelosi, like you said, whining and keeps going back to these poor 800,000. If she really cared, since she's been there since 1988. Yeah. So we got a group of people that aren't working right now. They're not doing any work. They're kind of like a layoff, but they typically always get back paid. That's always been the case. You got people that are forced to be in work right now and not getting paid.
Yeah.
And then you got Pelosi and them who are bitching about all that. They're not working, but they're getting paid. So you have three different kind of people working, not getting people getting paid that aren't working, people that are forced to work don't get paid. So it's an issue now. She's been around since 88.
Yeah.
Schumer, 81.
So this goes along with what Ben was trying to say, or did say, that there's monies and funds in the District of Columbia to make sure our senators and representatives get paid. But their assistants and the people that work their staffs aren't getting paid. Park rangers aren't getting paid.
Yeah. Now all of a sudden this is Trump's fault.
Oh, it's got to be.
Because he's in a shutdown, and we just need to open back up.
Now, I don't know if this is going to make a lot of our viewers mad, but here's another little fun fact about people in the Congress and senators. Did you know that if they ever get into a personal legal battle, they have slush funds within D.C. to help pay for their personal legal fees?
Sure.
Yes.
Where is our...
You're not in the club, man. You're not in the club. Is it
man,
Andrew Dice Clay?
yeah.
Who's the comedian? George Carlin. He had a spiel about you're not. Google it. George Carlin, The Club. It's perfect, and he's dead on. And he was he was George Carlin. He didn't leave anything out there. He basically told you if you're not in the club, you're screwed.
You're effed. Yeah.
They take a little bit more. All they want is more and more and more. And they keep making new laws and rules to get more and more. Not always money, but your privacy, your freedoms. But most of the time, it's your money that they're coming after. They just don't have enough yet.
Need a little more.
Well, the interesting, and they've discovered that money is the thing that makes our world go around. So if it's not based on anything and you control it, I mean, that's the ultimate control right there. So I think that's what's happening now. What we're seeing, this really reconstruction of our government. I'm hoping that the Fed goes down because
Amen.
We've talked about this. That's the backbone of basically everything we're talking about. You lose. I think it's like in any other battle. You lose if the enemy loses their supply chain and they get cut off. There's only a matter of time before they wither and die in the battlefield. Sure. And the Federal Reserve has been Washington, D.C., the city-state, the City of London, the city-state, and the Vatican, the city-state, has been their means of control. And once they lose that, I mean, how many countries right now are denying the American dollar as a sense of trade for purchasing of petrol?
Mm-hmm.
It's going down big time, and nobody's saying anything about that.
Right.
So...
Well,
it's happening now.
Was it Thomas Jefferson? And if it wasn't, it was Paine, but I'm pretty sure it was Jefferson. Every 50 years, a sovereign nation should bleed within to appreciate the freedoms which were won or put forward. Maybe this battle is federal employees. Maybe this battle is draining the swamp, which he was talking about, and everybody's, whoa, you ain't draining the swamp. Well, right now, like Mike said the other day, if they come back out of this shutdown at 50% employment ship, right? Maybe we're going to bring back some of you. We're not going to come back to a complete comeback. Some are going to still be shut down.
Can't be business as usual.
What if 1 or 2 or 4 years goes by and some of them people still haven't been to work? Well, then it's easier to say, see, we didn't need them after all. So don't bring them all back.
It's already that way now. They're
Right.
saying after 30 days, and I don't know how much further we go, but it's going to be like, look, how has it affected you?
Yeah.
You're still going to the store.
Right.
And it does. So the media, as much as they want us to believe that when the government shuts down, it's scary times, folks.
Well, that's their job.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like our home budgets. When you find out and this is the easiest point to make. When you find out that, oh my gosh, I just took a layoff, or my job changed, or I broke my leg, or my furnace went out, or I need a new vehicle, you budget, right? Our federal government doesn't do such a thing. What they say is, well, we need more federal agents, we need more federal this, the IRS needs 10,000 more employees, we'll borrow more money. And for some reason, it's been going on for so long, it's been pounded in our brains, we go, yeah, that makes sense. We're broke, we need to spend more.
Anytime they create a new agency and you start getting people shoved in there, then more monies are allocated over that way. Those people... Naturally, most people will fight for their job. I'm important. And even though an agency might not be needed no more, it was created for some sub project. If they're getting funding and it's working, it's just another way to drain.
Yeah.
Their overall thing is to be too big and draining and wasteful.
Ben, I got to ask you this. Ben, I'll ask you this because this is exactly what you were just kind of getting to. So the federal government, in a sense, is saying you states are too stupid, almost like Social Security and citizens. You're too stupid to save your money. But you states are so stupid, you can't perform and take care of yourselves. You need us. Why in the hell aren't the senators and the representatives of them states not standing up saying, like they used to 100 years ago, we don't need you, federal government?
That's a great question, because we should ask every one of our senators and congressmen, why aren't they standing up for our constitutional rights? Because I told Mike this, the original Penn Constitution outlined who has the supreme power. First, the original Penn Constitution said that our Creator is the supreme authority. Under our creator is humans, us, the people. We have the second highest authority. Under the people, the states have the third highest authority. And under the states, the federal government has the lowest authority. In 1871, that all got flipped upside down.
The DC
now, the federal
Constitution.
government is the highest law of the land, right?
Yeah.
The states are the second highest law of the land. The people are the third highest law of the land, and God is the fourth highest law of the land.
Think of that.
That's not a republic, is it, Ben?
That's what they call a democracy.
That's
We are
correct.
not a democracy. We are a republic.
Yes, sir.
What is the word? What's the second active word in the noun republic? Public. Republic. So this was the other thing too, is when the original declaration was signed and it was coming out and they were talking to people and they were asking, what are we? Are we a democracy ruled by a small elite few people, ruled by one person, which that would be considered a monarchy, which we were coming from. We know it very well. They're asking, what are we? And he says, we are a republic. We are ruled by the people. That's why when you give when you pledge allegiance to the flag, the word republic is in there, not the word democracy.
Yeah.
And so it's very interesting. The problem is by Americans being complacent, we have forgotten our rights, and we have been brainwashed to have driver's license. There's something called your straw man, and this is something that we've talked about for years, but they play word games, word porn, and they spell things differently because the English language is very vulgar. Most people don't understand that the English language is comprised of Phoenician, Greek, Latin, and when we go to courts and we use what they call legal language, people don't understand, oh, that's the court's language. No, that's English. And so when they see your name and it's all in capital letters and it says, like, for instance, the state of Michigan, that's not Michigan. That's the District of Columbia's designation and jurisdiction. So when you have a driver's license, that's you asking the District of Columbia to allow
Permission.
you to drive.
Yeah.
Permission.
Well, in our original Constitution, it is a right to travel freely. DC's Constitution put it as, they've squared it down to be a privilege.
Yeah.
That they've
Like
taken the
carrying a
right
firearm.
away, the natural laws,
Yeah.
unalienable rights.
Your
to travel.
address is a construction of the District of Columbia.
But we don't
The
need to
zip codes and stuff like
we
that.
honestly, we can talk about this all day, but this is what's supposedly being fixed. All right, this is the things that people aren't
Yes.
aware of. And for years, like Ben said, the straw man theory, people would look into this, and what they'd land on, Scott, was like, ooh, this system has trumped me. I'm going to remove myself. Right. There is really no way removing yourself. You have to remove it from everybody.
Correct.
All at once. One fell swoop. Here's a little
spin towards the federal government's reach, the Federal Reserve's reach, and somebody tell me this is wrong, because I told the guy and he's supposed to be watching. So the skids of cash that was taken to Iran, right? This happened under the Obama administration. Well, during the Bush administration, supposedly we were found guilty in a world court of crimes, humanitarian crimes. And the reason that cash got flown to Iran was because the court happened, the case was closed, and the world court found us guilty. So Obama had to pay. And I said, well, why wouldn't they do a wire transfer? And he goes, oh, no, it's got to be cash. The Iranian government needed it to be, wanted it, demanded it to be. And I'm like,
they are human rights abuse over there.
Again, so I know he's supposed to be watching, but I know this is probably just bogus. I just wanted to bring it up. That's where the left has gone with some of their
own conspiracy
BS and cover-ups. But the spin is on the Federal Reserve. How in the hell did anybody get that much cash on the skid? Was it just hey, you went down to the Federal Reserve, put it on a skid?
Yeah.
Because the Federal Reserve isn't controlled by the government anyway.
They have access. I mean, if you're at the peak of it. Real quick, I want to take it back to the question you asked Ben about why are our local governors, or when they run, sticking to or understand. And I put it to there, it's this big system out there. If you even get into the political realm 10 years ago, you're going to get the flow of how things go. Yeah. It's norm. None of these people that are in D.C., even Pelosi and Chuck, they didn't create this. They just became part of it. The club. It was already going. Yeah. And
they just sold out and joined.
I mean, and if you do it long enough like they have, they might not even know that they're operating. I mean, it's clear to us when you start studying our Constitution, these certain laws of history, how they're acting, and it's wrong. Yeah. But do they know it? I mean, I'm not saying that they don't, that they're not aware. They take an oath to this country to sit up on stage and say, you know, act like everything's about
I swear to uphold the Constitution of the District of Columbia.
Yeah.
and that's another. I know this show can spin all over the place, but I found it funny last night. I was watching somebody be sworn in. It was a child abduction rape case, and they asked the guy that they found guilty to swear upon a holy Bible. They still tell you or ask you to put your hand on the Bible. Some people don't do it, but if all these leftists and socialists have removed God from schools, but why do they even go through it anymore? Why is "In God We Trust" still on our? I mean, it's crap. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, tonight at midnight, we have talked about it, Ben, Scott, a little bit. We got to look at one of the bigger facets, like the SES. What is that? The Senior Enlisted Service, the highest levels of the federal government. Obama made some laws before he left that made it impossible for Trump to even fire them, even with all his power. He could not fire these highest SES. There's procedure. He did certain things, but the only clause was if you go over a 30-day shutdown, which is tonight at midnight. We enter into this 30-day. Nope.
Yeah, there was actually there was. Well, what happens is when
it
we
senior
talked
enlisted?
about,
Am I right? Somebody in the comments, if I'm wrong,
no,
before Ben talks.
No, you're right. It's the SES. It's the senior enlisted staff, and basically these are like the director of the FBI, the vice director. These are the high ups. You have mission critical positions and non-mission essential positions. So when the government goes 30 days for a shutdown, just like you said, Scott, right then and there, it is an indicator, and it's actually written by policy, an indicator that your position is non-mission essential. When you get hired on, you are in two categories of your federal job. And if you fall in the non-mission essential from the very get-go, if our government shut down for 30 days or longer, you're gone. They already know this. I have federal employees in my family, and they are very aware every year there is a governmental shutdown. So they prepare every year for a possible 1, 2, 3, 4.
Weird.
Who knows?
They save a little bit. They structure their life accordingly.
So yeah, and so when we talk, and they talk about the 800,000 people who are not getting paid and they're losing all this good stuff, you know, those numbers are so asinine and so astronomically small for the 320 or 30 million Americans. And when we're talking about what we're talking about hasn't been done since the early 1900s, because in 1913 the Federal Reserve Act passed, and ever since then we've been screwed. So it's been over 100 years that we've been over this. So when we talk about what's happening, this reduction in force, this could really be a reconstruction of our government, not just a reduction in force, because this 30-day not only opens up just a reduction in employee workforce, this allows our president to literally reconstruct whole merging like
of
the whole departments, like
departments, or getting rid of departments,
transportation, or
members
rid of departments.
Members of the SES serve in key positions just below the top presidential appointees. SES members are major links between these appointees and the rest of the federal workforce. They oversee nearly every government activity in approximately 75 different federal agencies. So these people are appointed, some of them were done under Obama that are still there. These are Obama leftovers as key people directing the narrative of these 75 federal agencies, folks. I mean, this is huge. So
75 federal agencies.
It's under the Office of U.S. Personal Management, the OPM, which are Office of Personal Management. We know what that is. So they manage the overall federal executive personal programs, providing the day-to-day oversight and the assistance to agencies as they develop, select, and manage their federal executives.
So the deep state was able to
That's basically
implement their own people to, in a sense, still have their claws in how things are going to be done.
That's why I think the shutdown, this was so critical, because you see the fight back. Now what we're seeing is the remnants of these people who couldn't get fired, couldn't get put on leave, couldn't get replaced, basically were politically, economically, and work-wise insulated from the new administration. I mean, think about that. That's real Ruski commie kind of tactics, you know.
Forget about it.
Yeah, you know, exactly. We got him taken care of.
So
you think about.
We believe, or there's documentation somewhere that we can find that says a 30-day shutdown is one of the variables that would.
Oh yeah, we've already went over it.
That's great.
We found it.
Good.
We were one of them that started pumping it.
Good.
I'll tell you.
Yeah, that was actually interesting.
I'll tell you, folks. What was the other? Well, let me just see if I can pull this up here.
That is amazing.
Yeah, we were.
You're supposed to learn something new every day, and I learned some new stuff right here with the Patriots. It's great.
Well, Mike and I, we were talking in Garage Talk like you guys do, like the team does, and that's where a lot of the good juices come flowing. And we started asking the question, because another question we had was like, wait a minute, why are all these evil Democrats in the House? And there's a majority. I wonder if the arrests can take sitting senators and congressmen. And sure enough, there's a small law that says that if they can take acting, seating senators and congressmen. Like, what about the 30-day? It's never happened before. We researched it, I'm like, oh my gosh. Reduction in force, and we started talking about that, and sure enough,
this is a massive chess game.
It's never happened before in the history of our country ever, like a 30-day shutdown. It's never happened, so nobody ever really thought it would happen. So when you signed your federal employee contract, it's never really talked about because it's never happened. It's almost like you have tornado insurance in Alaska, but there's not really tornadoes in Alaska. There's this one time we heard about.
Yeah, you just signed. Oops. So they're subject on the military tribunal side, or is this because they're officers of the United States? So that, and if they're making any deals abroad, then I suppose the military could try them, because you wouldn't want to take these people through the civilian court. A, nothing gets accomplished through the civilian court, and B, they have their own.
Well, some of their crimes lay outside the jurisdiction of civilian court. Just like in civilian court, we have the civil court, we have the district court. For crimes, when it comes to treason, there's nothing in civilian court that has to do with treason.
What is that? Real quick, we're going to jump
real
into
quick.
a couple.
We got a Q post.
No, these are old.
Oh, okay.
But look, 562, way back. This is from 19th of January, 2018, Scott. What does that say?
Remember this day.
That was yesterday, which was Popcorn Day, and then his speech. So we're wondering if that meant
that was a
we're
year
in
ago.
the year
He
delta,
posted
which is
that.
a year delay with all the Q posts, like we've been thinking, the Q clock.
Mm-hmm.
But now check this one out. Hold on, I'm in the wrong spot right here. Hold on. State of Union. So now here's this one, 5:58 on 19th of January last year. Timing is everything. State of the Union.
This is all literally exactly 1 year ago. I mean, today's the 20th.
Has it been planned, folks? Has it all been?
Well, if we're all right in our thinking that he's trying to get the country, give it back to the people, and drain the swamp, and all of these variables that have to take, it was going to take time. And in the beginning, Q was telling us patience, patience, patience. I think we're about to start honestly seeing some of we're bearing the fruit of our patience now, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't going to happen overnight like you always illustrated. Otherwise, he'd look like a tyrant or a dictator. So it took time. You had to remove some pieces, put some pieces in, start shedding some light so none of us are caught off guard, because you know how the media likes to spin it if none of us are aware of certain laws. But this is great.
Every great thing, if we looked into, Ben, like they said, it only took 10% of the population to be focused and
If you,
paying attention.
if you want to project an idea to the entire populace of a society, all you have to do is capture 10% of that society with the idea, and by the sheer statistics, that 10% will disseminate that idea over the entire population.
It's like
Hitler
Ebola.
knew this because he said, Hitler knew this because he says, if you want to tell a lie, repeat it over and over, make it loud, make it
often.
simple. I mean, repeat it often, over and over and over.
Right.
So basically, it would supplant it. And so, what we're talking about, you think about if the only way to reconstruct our federal government and X the Fed and X all these people was a 30-day plus governmental shutdown. Well, think about that. It only happens once. That could only happen once a year.
That's very tiny.
It only happen once
It's
a year.
very
Yes,
tiny.
It's a window.
very minute window.
So here, we're going to break this down because the mainstream I'm looking here is, so I'm going to play just little bits and then we're going to break it down to help the people. And we got to listen, folks, to the words because it's very important. Again, we've talked about in the past, Scott, different politicians being up on stage and they don't ever really use the words, we the people, we need to take power away from DC. They just talk about, we're going to take taxes and make the rich pay a little more. And that's just a game, because if you take taxes away from this group, but and you make it over for this group a little higher, nothing's really happened against them. It only happens against us.
Hey, real quick, this is going to bounce a little bit, but one of our viewers couldn't get on for some darn reason, but he just sent me an application. No, this is on a test, a college test, a local college test. His wife just took a test, and the demographics part of the test was asking, what sex were you assigned at birth on your original birth certificate? And it's got a box, check yes, or male or female. And then the box right below it, what is your current gender identity? Check all that apply. Now, this is for federal monies. Federal monies that go along with the next. She has to take this test, but there's monies from the federal government that are backing her schooling right now. She's a vet too, by the way. So the next box, obviously, what do you identify with now? Check all that apply. Male, female, trans male dash trans man, trans female dash trans woman, gender queer / gender non-conforming, a different identity altogether. So again, I know that didn't have much to do with what we were saying, but a fellow vet of yours wanted to come out and say this is where some of our federal fingers.
Yeah.
Hey, tell them the chat is, you have to hit the live chat thing.
Okay.
It's right underneath. Well, if they're watching, if you're on your phone
that's a
or device.
Luciferian agenda, brother.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
That's a Luciferian agenda. Oh, yeah. That's why most of the actors you see in Hollywood, all the women are really men dressed up as women who you think are women. And all the men are women who've been cutting themselves off and doing hormone injections. So it's like, think about that.
So they're playing God. Playing God.
Well, actually, what they're trying to do is corrupt God's image.
It's
because if you
perverted.
remember,
They pervert everything.
Yeah, they try to pervert everything. We were created in God's image, and so when we are born at birth as a man, biologically having an X chromosome or a Y chromosome, that's who you are. And of course, in the Bible, it says everything after its own kind.
Yeah.
And what does the devil try to do? Pervert that. Just like DC took the power away from the supreme authority, the God, the person, who gave us our unalienable rights.
Yeah.
They took the most highest authority and put it in the lowest.
Yeah,
that's where
that's
the subversion. That was the first subversion that took place, and when you look at 100 years, that's that much time. But if we
like
slowly,
you said, that's 1871 when that happened. Keep going. It took another 40, 50 years for the banking thing to come back in. So it was in processes. It was in stages. It wasn't.
Yeah,
overnight.
it wasn't until I think 72 or 1974 until we officially declared bankruptcy and went completely off the gold and silver
Nixon.
standard, which was like the solidifying last vestige that the Federal Reserve and the cartel of central banks were waiting for. So now they can make the American dollar the only form of currency used for crude oil and energy.
Let's play a fantasy TV show series kind of right now drama, and it was on 16 NBC a while back, and they cut it down because I think they realized, oh my God, we're giving people too much to think about. if the electricity went off, or if there was just a ultimate, and it's scary to think, 'cause for especially anybody that has children. But if it all shut down, if you really think about what a dollar is, it means nothing on a battlefield other than the supplies that they paid for. But what if we got back to 1850s type of living, and it could happen with a blink of an eye with EMPs and whatnot? That's where you got to get people convinced. The reason they have power is because they have all of the money. And since we value the dollar or monies more than any other value on the planet, that's why they have control. So ultimately, my end game is this. It's kind of crazy, but quit spending money. Just learn how to start farming again. Learn how to go off the grid. Learn how to take care of yourself. Because when all this happens, I don't care if you got $1 zillion. You're weak. Guys like us, our followers, we're all going to be a community of one. We'll survive. We don't need those hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars to survive. I don't really know where I was going with this, other than they need to make a show that shows the end of times based on if you ain't rich, you're dead.
Yeah.
I mean, if you are
even
rich,
then,
you're dead.
though,
If you ain't rich, you're going to survive. Yeah.
I think what you're trying. I think I would agree with you, Scott. I think that falls into one, being more self-reliant and self-sufficiency. That doesn't mean you got to go off the grid crazy, but the things about how much you teach your children how to create a fire without using matches and gasoline. Okay,
Right.
How about teach your kids in the cardinal directions, northeast, south, and west, without using a compass?
Compass?
These are the.
What's a compass?
Yeah.
What's a map?
Okay, there you go. What is a compass?
Siri
What's a map?
tells me where to go.
So I think that if we all became more aware, one,
From this day forward, a
I didn't mean to. All right, go ahead.
Oh no, I just was saying, if we all felt like that, Mike, and and Scott, and we all basically said that we're all self-sufficient, because I trade my apples from my apple tree from the neighbor down the street for her eggs because she has chickens. Now eventually I'll get my own chickens, but she's got chickens, I got apples. So my apples go for about $20-30 a bushel. Her eggs go for about $2 a dozen. Do we trade money? No, I just give her a bunch of apples and she gives me a bunch of eggs, and we're all real happy.
And you didn't need the IRS involved, did you?
Yeah.
I didn't need regulations. I didn't need the FDA. The
Somebody telling you it was a good deal or not a good deal.
Yeah. There's a worm in that apple.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, then their horse gets it. There you go. See, everybody's happy and everybody gets it round. So if you get that way, I mean, think about it. You made a good point. If we all were more aware of the world around us and we were aware of our own personal rights, we wouldn't tolerate scumbags. We wouldn't tolerate people walking in and hey, wanting to fight everybody and acting aggressively. We wouldn't tolerate police officers doing what they do. We'd hold everybody would be supremely accountable to the Constitution. If you weren't, well, you'd be in big trouble, because that means you interfere with me. I have a sidearm. You have a sidearm, and it's my.
Right.
Remember the cowboy and Indian days?
You want a duel?
When they would walk outside and they would do a duel. Why would that happen back then? And nobody got arrested for murder. And the sheriff said the whole thing. That's my duly appointed constitutional right.
Mm-hmm.
Because they were acting under the original pen Constitution.
Roger that.
Yes, give
Because
everybody
that
a
worked.
gun.
The reason they stopped all that was to create the anarchy that we have now and issues, and you don't like what
It's a
back
huge
then,
topic.
It just worked itself out.
It's like it's molesters, rapists, murderers. What are we doing? Back in the day, they put a rope around you. The community watched you get hung. And I'm sorry, but if my 12-year-old sees on live TV some man hanging from his neck, and he asks me, Dad, why? That is so scary. Why'd they do that? Well, he broke a serious law. He hurt somebody so bad. But no, we find him guilty. We throw him in prison. Sometimes we let him back out, and they do it again because we can rehabilitate. The further we get away from our principal foundation, the more we find ourselves in trouble. I repeat that often.
Yeah.
But I think that people are starting to open their eyes. I pray that they do, because the alternative is more of this PC. Isn't it weird that we use that term, politically correct? Why? That was a term embedded in all of us. You're not politically correct, Scott. Well, I don't care. I don't care to be. You came up with that term to
you would say,
taint your word.
Yeah, they're tainting my ideals with
don't infringe on my right to free speech. That PC, that's an infringement.
Prejudice, right? Prejudging. I'm
Yeah.
wrong. You're right. That's essentially what they're saying. And
Well, here, let's listen to a few words of this for the people I'm recording right now. I want to
I'm
get
going to
this in
step
here.
out while you're doing a video. Is that
No,
what
no,
you're
no,
doing? Oh.
no. Just for a minute. We'll stop this here, but check it out. Listen, I'll keep pausing it. We're not getting off the screen. We're on here.
From this day forward, a new vision will govern our land.
Right there. From this day forward, a new vision will govern our land. What do you take that to be, either of you?
Go ahead, Scott. Hip that one up. What do you
A
think?
new division.
A
Break
new
those
vision.
words down. I want to hear
Here,
that.
listen again.
Oh,
I'll do it
'cause
again.
there's-
Let me see it.
From this day forward, a new vision will govern our land.
A new vision. Okay.
From this
underscore
day
that.
forward, this is what he put out today. This is maybe the last thing sitting on his Twitter.
New vision. After this conversation that us three have just had, and you kind of shed some light on the old Constitution,
See,
I
look
hope
right here,
that
Scott,
his new
real quick.
vision is based on an old vision. But if his new vision essentially means everything we've been pushing for and implementing is now going to take hold, and we're going to drain the swamp, and we're going to start trying people, and we're going to implement the real deep down laws of the Constitution that allows him to do these things, then I hope that's the vision he's speaking of.
Right.
I don't need another premonition. I don't need another person to tell me, including Trump, this is the new way we should do it. I hope his new vision means the old way.
Well, you can only base that off of everything he's doing. But so I'll jump to the end, because this is where I texted you on the way here, and I said the last 15 minutes, but I forgot about I didn't hear it at the time. This is one of them things where you could listen to this whole minute thing and it just blow right by you. But if you listen to the words, so here's the closeout of this. This is posted last thing on his Twitter, folks. I'm looking 5 hours ago. Trump posted this from his actual Twitter. All right.
Of America. We will not fail. January 20th, 2017 will be remembered as the day the people became the rulers of this nation again.
The people.
Right there.
The rulers.
So I think
the
rulers.
kings.
You see,
like our original Constitution, we're all supposed to be kings, right, Ben?
King of your castle. That's where that old saying came
well,
from.
well, not necessarily. Not necessarily. Let me ask you a question, Scott. Do kings pay taxes?
Well, my first instinct is to say no, but I know
No,
you.
kings do not pay taxes. So when it calls for taxes, should
Everyone
we be
pays
paying
taxes to them.
taxes?
Well, I am. Yeah, you're right. And
So
I
when
never
we
really
talk
own my
about-
house, because even if I pay it off, I'm still going to pay taxes, which is a rental fee. So
Under this system we're in.
But under this system, wait a minute now. See, what about the Fourth Amendment, the right to private properties and the right to the personal
Let
effects?
me
What is-
intervene.
I see. I
Listen,
see what you're saying.
the way that everyone thinks now is, well, I have to do this to get that. That's under the system we're in.
Right.
It's like me and Ben talk. Have we ever been to space? And we're like, well, under the technology that I know to exist, I don't think so. But there's technologies that we don't know exist because our government's hidden them. So if you bring those into the mix, maybe things become
like
possible.
the stealth bomber was being designed in the 70s.
Yeah, if you don't know that, then you think things that are talked about around that seem weird. But we're talking about Trump is doing like tariffs. If you do things right, and for the first time, what is it? We got money shoving into the Treasury.
How
for the first
America was supposed to be, how we were supposed to get money to the United States of America was through commerce, buying and selling and trading, not through taxes.
Right.
That's how we have
So
what they
what if we
call
go back to
taxation
that?
without representation. When did we start
That's why
paying
we fought in the first place.
taxes? 1871. When was the IRS? Is the IRS part of our government, or is the IRS a faction
1913.
of the 1913? Are they a faction of the Federal Reserve? Let me ask you another thing. Who prints the money? Not the Federal Reserve. Americans in America. The Philadelphia Mint, the Denver Mint.
Yeah, we went over
So,
that. So
what we're
our
talking
own
about
Constitution
here-
gave us a Treasury to print, and we still like. Where does
To regulate
Fort
the
Knox? Where does Fort Knox lie? Not within D.C.'s confines.
Kentucky, right?
Kentucky. All of our
So
mints are
therefore,
outside.
it's the people.
All
It's the power
Federal
of the
Reserve
people.
does was jump in and be a middleman.
Control
We
it.
were already doing the money. They came in and said, "Wait a minute, we'll tell you." And they wanted the power to regulate the money. That's all it was. Like, we don't need them,
They-
but they they buffled their way in there. They kind of came in
started
between.
fractional reserve banking. Fractional reserve banking came about central banking. Remember, the Federal Reserve is the third central bank in our country. The first one got kicked out because it was
Andrew Jackson?
unconstitutional.
Andrew Jackson?
It was unconstitutional, right?
He died.
The second one, yeah, I killed the bankers. You know, the second one,
That was his
they
proudest
had a-
moment.
Yes, look at so the second one was a 20-year charter. They bowled this over and it got passed like same thing like the Patriot Act in the middle of the night on a holiday, hardly anybody's there. So we got screwed. So for 20 years we had a central bank of the United States, and we hated it. And after the 20-year charter, when the charter was up to be renewed, we canceled it. Now they went back and says we did it all wrong. We have to do it. We have to make it look a different way. We have to make it feel right. And in 1913 they came out, and by 1933 we were already in there.
What
and it
was
had
one of the
fulfilled.
tricks? How did they called it the Federal Reserve? They're like, we'll call it the Federal Reserve. That way the people think it's
play on words.
Federal.
Well, they'll think, first of all, they'll think it's a federal agency and that they have reserves. That's a financial term. Having reserves means you have stuff, you're holding something.
It
and
was
they have-
perfectly done.
Yeah.
It was perfectly done.
It's worked.
This has been going on for thousands of years. Now, I'm a believer, so in the Bible, most believers believe that interest is sin. Interest is sin. You can't make money off of money. That's what's very common. It's that in the Old Testament, Jesus went to the tabernacles, getting all these people because they were making money in the tabernacle. You can't make money. You can't make money off of money. The whole idea and the very idea of a Federal Reserve, fractional reserve banking, is an evil idea. It's basically we're operating off of an illusion.
Now our Federal Reserve lost their, what is that word that you're using, to get refunded, to get certified?
They have their charter was up.
It was
their
up in
charter was up
2012.
2012.
We have
Now,
not re-signed with the Federal
not
Reserve
renewed
since
it.
2012.
It's been
So everything since then has been
It's
counterfeit.
been extended.
They got extended.
I think they've been extending it, waiting and seeing what's going on because Trump has never introduced a renewal charter. Because remember, it has to be passed by the Congress. They have to pass it for us to have a new central bank. So that's why they haven't done anything, and so now it's all gray area. That's why it's all being really crazy. So this whole governmental reconstruction is going to conquer a lot of things. And when we say getting back to the original Constitution, we're not going to get back to people how we used to live because of technology. It's going to be how we regulate our own people. The people will regulate each other rather than us being regulated by a supreme authority called the District of Columbia. Because if it's a District of Columbia, who is Columbia? And does she have other districts?
Right. Wow. Well said.
So think about that. And also, like Ben said, if we get back to our original way of thinking and working, when we borrow money, it can benefit the country when everyone borrows. It can really prosper if it was done in the right way and the money was going the right ways and it wasn't, these high numbers that we come up
Well,
with.
think about it. In the old adage, the biggest principle behind capitalism, if I have enough to lend you, that I'm living on, and I have a surplus that you would like some of that to better your life, maybe start a business, then the true sense of capitalism and being in a republic is, yes, I will gladly lend it to you. Obviously, there'll be a contract of some sort, but take my money that I have extra of, start your own business. One day you'll have extra. You'll be paying me back, and then, you pay it for. Capitalism, in its perfect sense, in a republic, cannot fail. It can fail if you allow senators and congressmen and a Federal Reserve to start strangleholding it and making rules and regulate. You shall not, you should not. That should have been the 11th commandment. Thou shalt not regulate.
Well, the power, these great evil people have said, I don't care who controls the laws of a nation, and they think that we're all controlling it. Give me the power to control their money. and that's all that matters. You know, the power to regulate and control one's money, to, you know, rise up the interest and bring it down, or to influx the amount of money or take it away, is the power to bring a country to its knees. And that's,
and we talked about this very briefly early on when we talk about first termers, only one term people. Remember, we talked about they should be getting paid from their states. Well, if the Federal Reserve goes away and it's no more, well, then each state has their own bank. My monies will be put into my state's bank.
Yeah.
And it's going to be based off of gold and silver, which is it's across the entire earth. Gold is valued in a certain way across the whole entire earth. And so when you start having people like back in the day, I'm from the sovereign state of West Virginia. They were serious. They fell under West Virginian law. If they went and murdered somebody in Kentucky, well, they would have some real issues because Kentucky would have to try a West Virginian under Kentucky law.
Hatfield
and
McCoy.
West Virginia. So this is like the Hatfield McCoy type thing. Right. They alluded to that as well. We were operating under each individual.
When the sheriffs came to arrest, they'd be like, "Well, I'm taking to the sovereign state." They wanted to be tried.
That's a small case where, in one of them situations where the federal government is needed, and I'm not saying that because, oh, Scott, well, you get to decide when the Constitution, the original Constitution said, it laid out there was only like 11 things the federal government was supposed to be responsible for, and it was ratified. I mean, all the states went along with it. That's why they signed the paper and joined the Union. They would, if they had an opportunity right now to successfully leave the Union. Texas is California.
The first one.
California can. I would. But
California can't really because they don't have the natural resources to break away as an independent country. Texas is the only person who has water, oil, and all the other natural resources. But you're right, though.
I would move there.
When they originally created Washington, D.C., they created it as a municipality. It was a municipality of the state of Maryland. Yep. Maryland gave a little piece of their state away.
A state within a state.
A state now, well, it was a municipality, which means a municipality is subject to the states. And that was a very unique municipality. It isn't like you go to the courthouse in your local county, and that's a municipality of that county. And that courthouse is that. So our District of Columbia would be a municipality of the United States of America, and it would protect our borders. It also protect from insurrection or within, but it would have no troops. There would be no troops. They would have federalized troops from the state militias, and that's what would constitute if we were going to quote unquote war. Now, Mike and I talked about in Garage Talk. Well, wait a minute, we have the Navy and the Army. I mean, you know, Mike and I are vets. We serve. And it's like, well, what happened to all the soldiers who are currently serving? Nothing would change. Instead of you being a sailor of the United States, you'd be a sailor out of Oklahoma State.
The 3rd Regiment.
Oklahoma State sent me. Yeah, that's what it'd be. So we'd still have warships and we'd still have things, but we would be patrolling our own coastlines. We'd have our own people. We wouldn't be the world police everywhere else. Now, not to mention that we wouldn't help other countries. I mean, that's just being what a good neighbor does. I mean, I'm not going to shoot at my neighbor. I mean, but we're also going to put up our fences and let our neighbor know where's theirs stop and where's ours begin.
Isn't D.C. in its simplest sense just supposed to be the meeting place, like our legions or whatever, where all the representatives come?
Our own Constitution tells us, Scott, that it shouldn't be more than 10 miles wide by 10 mile, and when they built that own Constitution in 1871, it usurped ours in a lot of ways. Our Constitution talks about their Constitution. They should have one to how they function, but it should never impede on ours. It should coincide.
It's a meeting hall. It should only be a meeting hall.
You're right, Scott. It should be a giant meeting hall, and they should once a year come there to do some meetings.
Capitalism, again, if you remove the federal thumb, maybe Indiana is a better state than New York, so people would want to come live, and it shouldn't have nothing to do with FICA or tax. State taxes obviously should control some of that, but states should be able to compete against one another. Competition is healthy, but
yes,
you need to remove the big thumb of the federal government. But some of these states, probably most of them anymore, have found themselves in a situation where they've allowed the federal government to tell them how they're going to do business or run. So maybe they depend on the federal dollar too much. I would like to see some numbers or talk to somebody that would understand that or does know that. How many states, honestly, today could say, you know what? We're turning off the faucet from D.C. We are going to run our state with state money, because the federal government can't say, well, you have to borrow our money. No, we don't have to.
Well, remember, all the money is based on the Federal Reserve, so that's where it can never happen. A state can never get their own money because it's not based on anything. Mike, you might know this as well. And both of you guys know this. Where have we seen in 2019 where states' law has superseded federal law, and the federal government says we're going to do a hands-off approach to this. We're going to states govern themselves. Medical marijuana. So medical marijuana right now, there's over 33 states in the United States of America
that are doing what they should do with money.
It's federally illegal, though.
But it's federally illegal. But what has the federal government been doing since Obama? Well, we're doing a hands-off, because basically what the states are doing, what they're saying right now, is saying, look, it's our right to have medical marijuana, and you can't tell us otherwise.
Think about it, Scott. I mean,
this is interesting.
Our Constitution is supposed to be for the people. So if you have all these people in states that want to smoke marijuana now, and you might not agree with it, but it's like, who is the federal government to tell you no? You're setting people up for failure. If you have a majority of people, and I'm not saying, and we'll probably never get to the point where a majority of people say it should be all right to kill people, and then it's like, well, now you have this small fraction of groups saying no, it's not all right to kill. That would be the opposite of I would think.
Yeah, because
typically the majority of people are gonna come up with the right consensus. At least,
do you think the majority is?
Because what you're saying is that the people don't know what's best for them. That the federal government needs to step in and say no.
Right.
Smack you on the hand.
I understand. Well, so my understanding is Colorado put it to a vote and it won on the ballot. Doesn't mean that the majority, because we all know the majority of the people don't vote anyway. So the comeback to that is, I don't want to hear you pitching and complaining because you didn't vote. An absentee vote is a yay vote.
Yeah, the person that didn't vote to stop it shouldn't be bitching that it went through.
I would bet that 65 to 70% of Americans didn't want to legalize it. They just didn't get out and vote. Well, tough. I'm not for it or against it, but I could understand why some people say, well, the majority didn't win that. Well, the majority had an opportunity to vote. Michigan won. They barely won, but it did win. Mm-hmm. So I'm okay with whatever the majority, because that's Republic. That's being you're not. Gosh darn, I don't know how to phrase that.
Well, you set people up for failure. If you have a town like these dry towns that we hear about where they don't serve liquor,
they chose that.
Yeah, they've chose it. See, but now let's say you have like these certain places where the people vote and they want to smoke their weed, but then you have the small fraction of police force, 10 guys that say no, we don't care how 15,000 people voted, and we're still going to arrest them. You're setting all them people up for failure now.
They can't, because the county and municipality and state troopers work for that state or those counties or municipalities within the state. But we have a unique situation here, and the people on the border of Colorado have a unique situation, because you can go into Michigan, you can do whatever you want. You can go to Colorado's neighbors and you can party down, you can buy all the, I don't know about all the weed, I'm sure it's regulated, by somebody. But you can partake in those freedoms. But if you for 1 minute think that you have the right to come in, say, to Michigan from a neighboring state, buy your sack and cross that state border, you now just committed a federal offense.
Yes.
But the neighboring state or municipality or county within that state has every right to arrest you and apply their laws.
Yes.
So as long as it's advertised as such, and it has not been, because a lot of people are not falling victim. They just didn't do their research. A lot of Hoosiers went, oh, we can just go right up the road and get a bunch of weed and come home and go straight to jail. Shoot.
Yep.
So, but again, I'm okay with it. I mean, the vote should should control the outcome, and it always does.
Or
It's
sometimes.
Unless you're in Florida.
Let's close this down. Give Ben some final word here on everything we talked about. We might come back up and just do a record if you want for the Patriot Hour. But here, give Ben some final thoughts, closeouts, and then go to Scott.
Yeah, no, I just was saying, first of all, lots of love to all you guys. It's fun talking to you guys and being here. Some of the best Patriots around. What was said today will go down in history. Today at midnight will be history in the making. And I think for the next few days, you're going to start to see something that you've never seen before. None of us have seen before because of what's happening, and that our partial shutdown has now reached a threshold it's never been to before. I think that the power is going to be leaving the District of Columbia and coming back to we the people. And I hope and pray that all you who are watching now and who are part of, and you know, our team here is relentless about getting out our constitutional facts, shattering the illusion of your realities for the purpose of truth. Love you guys. Super awesome. God bless. And always great to be on the Patriot Hour with the team. Always good stuff, you guys. You guys are awesome.
All right, brother.
Take care, man. I came over here anticipating to leave with a different feeling. I'm now more excited. I'm excited for what I've learned. I'm excited for the midnight situation. I'm excited to see if what we believe is about to happen will happen. I'm excited to see us go back to a constitutional mandate, the first constitution in my mind. I'm just excited. I'm even more excited now than I thought I was going to be when I left. But I thought I was going to be excited for different reasons. I was caught off guard that Ben was going to be here, so that's fun. I got to learn some things. If you spend one day without learning anything, that was a day wasted in my opinion. So I guess I'm going to end on that. Don't ever take for granted that you may or may not know everything. Open your eyes. Listen. Listen is important. Stoked, super stoked. Say a prayer for the president if you are a prayer and a believer. If you're not, just hope good, happy thoughts. I guess we're going to stay tuned, and we'll be back on tomorrow. Or Mike and I might be back on here in a minute anyway. But let's get back on tomorrow, and maybe something cool just happened.
Oh yeah. All right, folks. Well, that was great from both of them. Let's remember, George Washington crossed the Delaware on December 25th through the 26th at the late hours in 1776, right? So what did we have here? We had the government shutdown kickoff on the 21st or something, 22nd of December. Right around the same time frame. We're building up. We hear Trump today with that. It's sitting on his Twitter. It's unbelievable to me. I hear a lot of different things in there. I've heard a lot of different things in all his speeches. Didn't hear him at first. In the last year and a half or so, year for sure, going back, listening to old ones, found the stuff about him talking about being a former insider. Because every time I'd hear something from some naysayer about, well, he's just part of, you look into his past, he's done these deals. And I'm like, that is, but if we look at all the, Phil Schneider's, Bill Cooper's, that's all we ever have. They're former insiders that know about something, and you live life. You live life as a kid. You grow up to a man, woman, and then you join something. You can either stick with what you joined to find out to be pure evil, or you can step away from it and expose it. There's only a couple choices you have. And it looks like Trump took the latter of stepping back out because he knew it wasn't right. Now, whether that came later in life, God touched him at a certain point, I don't know. That's all we can assume from what he's saying and what he's doing. New World Order, they don't want border walls. They want a one money system for the whole world. Trump's talking about sovereignty, taking power away from D.C., giving it back to you, me, Scott, the people. That is exact opposite of a new world, one money, one religion system. So I'm sticking with that. We're going to see tonight at midnight where we enter into. Who knows? I'm ready for it. It is a scary time, folks, but it seems like they got all the things put into play. Nothing left up to chance. So we'll move forward accordingly. We'll come back. I'll have a show for the Patriot Hour here in about an hour put up, because me and Scott will do something, even if it's 15, 20 minutes before he ends up heading out. But again, God bless, Godspeed to each and every one of you, and we'll see you back here.
Take care.
Take care, guys. Keep fighting for your rights. Never give them up.